My name is Felix Tillman. I'm 43 years old, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. 3rd Ward. The kind of neighborhood where everybody knows your daddy's name and your grandmother's potato salad recipe. My father, Reginald Earl Tillman, built something real. A man who started with a lawnmower and a dream, turned it into Tillman Property Group, 8 commercial properties, 2 warehouses, and a legacy worth approximately $2.3 million. He died on a Tuesday in March. Heart attack. No warning. No goodbye. I got the call at 6:47 in the morning while I was making my daughter Kayla's breakfast. She was still in her pajamas, 15 years old, laughing at something on her phone. I remember the smell of turkey bacon in the pan. I remember how the light hit the kitchen window. And then my phone rang, and the world cracked open. My father had remarried 6 years ago. Her name was Donna Renee Tillman, formerly Donna Renee Watkins. 51 years old. Acrylic nails. A smile that never quite reached her eyes. I tried to like her. God knows I tried. For my father's sake, I smiled at every holiday dinner. I laughed at her unfunny jokes. I watched her redecorate my childhood home like erasing history was interior design. But something always felt wrong about Donna. The way she watched my father's phone. The way she got quiet whenever money came up. The way she'd steer conversations away from his business, like she was protecting something. Or hiding something. I should have trusted my gut sooner. The reading of the will was scheduled for 2 weeks after the funeral, April 14th, 10 a.m., at the downtown offices of Hargrove & Associates law firm. 42nd floor. The kind of place where the chairs cost more than my first car. My father's attorney was a man named Theodore Hargrove III. 60 years old, silver-haired, old Atlanta money. He'd handled my father's affairs for over 20 years. I trusted him. More importantly, my father trusted him. I brought Kayla with me. Now, some people said I shouldn't have. My cousin Melvin, big mouth, good heart, called me the night before and said, "Felix, bro, leave baby girl home. That room is gonna be ugly." But Kayla had been close to her grandfather. She deserved to be there. She deserved to hear his final wishes with her own ears. She was 15, not 5. And my father had specifically mentioned her in conversations about the estate. I had every reason to bring her. Donna showed up with 2 people I didn't recognize. One was a man named Clifton Reeves, sharp suit, dead eyes, introduced himself as Donna's financial advisor. The other was a woman named Lillian Odom, Donna's older sister. Lillian had the same calculated smile as Donna, just older and meaner around the edges. Theodore Hargrove greeted everyone professionally and gestured for us to sit. The conference room was cold. Deliberately cold, the way law firms always are, like they want to keep emotions frozen. Kayla sat beside me, quiet and composed, wearing the navy dress she'd worn to her grandfather's funeral. She had his eyes. Every time I looked at her, I saw him. I squeezed her hand under the table. Neither of us knew what was coming. Neither of us could have predicted what Donna was about to do. Theodore Hargrove opened the folder slowly, methodically. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning breathing. "The last will and testament of Reginald Earl Tillman," he began, dated January 9th of this year. January 9th. I caught that immediately. That was only 14 months before my father died. He'd updated the will recently. A nervous energy climbed up my spine. Theodore continued. The estate was to be divided as follows: 45% to me, Felix Tillman. 30% to Donna Renee Tillman. 15% placed in a protected educational trust for Kayla Simone Tillman. The remaining 10% split between 2 of my father's longtime employees who had worked with him for over 15 years. The moment Theodore finished reading Kayla's portion, Donna's jaw tightened. I saw it. Clear as daylight. A trust. Donna said, her voice cutting through the stillness like a blade. Reginald set up a trust for her. She's not even his biological granddaughter. She's Felix's daughter from some woman he was never even married to. The room went absolutely still. Theodore looked up slowly over his glasses. "Mrs. Tillman, Kayla Simone Tillman is listed by name in this document. Mr. Tillman's intentions are legally clear and binding. Donna laughed. Actually laughed. It was the ugliest sound I'd ever heard in my life. Reginald was clearly confused in his final months, she said, glancing at Clifton like they'd rehearsed this. We'll be contesting this will. My blood went cold. Kayla stiffened beside me but said nothing. She was biting her lip, the same way she did when she was trying not to cry. You okay? I whispered. She nodded once. But her hands were trembling in her lap. I didn't know then that the worst moment was still 60 seconds away. Theodore was explaining the legal grounds required to contest a will when Donna interrupted him, again. That child doesn't deserve a single penny of Reginald's money, she said flatly, pointing a finger across the table. Not at me. At Kayla. I felt the temperature in my body shift. Donna. My voice was low. Measured. She is 15 years old. Watch your mouth. I'm speaking the truth, Felix. Your daughter has been used as a pawn your entire life to guilt Reginald into. That is enough. Theodore's voice was firm. But Donna wasn't finished. She pushed her chair back and stood up. Lillian stood with her like a shadow. Clifton sat perfectly still, already calculating something, I could tell. Donna walked around the corner of the conference table, and I thought she was heading toward Theodore. She wasn't. She stopped directly beside Kayla. You need to understand, Donna said to my daughter, leaning down, her voice hissing low and vicious, that your grandfather would have never put you in that will if Felix hadn't poisoned his mind against me. Kayla looked up at her. Calm. Quiet. Her grandfather's dignity in her eyes. I didn't poison anybody, Kayla said softly. Granddaddy loved me because I loved him. That's when it happened. Donna's right hand moved so fast I almost didn't register it. The crack of skin against skin exploded through the conference room. Kayla's head snapped sideways. A red welt bloomed across her left cheek. For 2 full seconds, nobody breathed. Then I was on my feet, and Theodore Hargrove was already reaching for his phone. Don't you move, Theodore said, not to me. To Donna. His voice had dropped to something I'd never heard from a lawyer before. Something final. Nobody in this room moves. I have replayed that moment 10,000 times in my mind. My daughter, 15 years old, sitting in a law office to honor her grandfather's memory, wearing his favorite color, doing nothing wrong, nothing, and a grown woman put her hands on her face. I wanted to flip that entire conference table. I wanted to say things I can never take back. Every cell in my body was screaming. But I looked at Kayla. She wasn't crying. She had one hand pressed to her cheek and she was looking at me, steady, waiting. Like she trusted me to handle this the right way. Like she was my father's granddaughter down to her DNA. That look saved the moment. Baby, I said, keeping my voice even by sheer force of will. You're okay. I need you to stay right here. I turned to Theodore. He already had his phone to his ear. Yes, this is Theodore Hargrove. I'm at my offices at 245, Peachtree Center Avenue, 42nd floor. I need police dispatched immediately. An adult has just physically struck a minor in my presence. He paused, listening. Yes. I am the witness. I will hold everyone here. Donna stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. You're calling the police, she said. Over a tap. That child was being disrespectful. Mrs. Tillman. Theodore set the phone face up on the table, the dispatcher still on the line. You struck a minor. In my office. In front of me. Whatever you believed was disrespectful. Nothing justifies that. I want you to sit down and not speak another word until officers arrive. Lillian grabbed Donna's arm. Donna, stop talking. Clifton Reeves quietly reached inside his jacket and I watched him slip his phone out, probably texting someone. A lawyer. I made a mental note of that. I pulled my chair close to Kayla and put my arm around her shoulders. I'm proud of you, I told her. She leaned into me and exhaled. And that exhale broke my heart wide open. Two officers arrived in 11 minutes. Officer Brianna Cole and Officer Demetric Harmon. Both professional, both calm, both taking this very seriously once Theodore explained what happened. Theodore Hargrove was not a man who exaggerated. He was a man who used precise language. So when he told Officer Cole, I was seated approximately 4 feet away. The contact was deliberate, open-handed, and forceful enough to visibly mark the child's face. That was a statement that carried weight. They photographed Kayla's cheek. The redness was still visible. Donna tried 3 separate times to explain herself. She was being a moody little. Officer Cole held up one hand. Stop. Lillian was whispering furiously into Donna's ear. Clifton Reeves had gone completely quiet, the way people go quiet when they're calculating damage control. They took Donna's information, photographed the room, got statements from everyone present. I watched Donna's face cycle through shock, indignation, and finally, something that might have been the first real fear she'd felt all day. Because the officer handed her a citation for misdemeanor battery of a minor and told her she'd receive a court summons within 14 business days. A court summons, Donna repeated. Yes, over this. You have got to be. I'm going to need you to lower your voice. Then Theodore did something I did not expect. He asked the officers to remain briefly, turned to Donna, and said, calmly, precisely, as if reading from a document, Mrs. Tillman, I'll need you to understand that what occurred today, in my office, as a witnessed act of violence against a minor named as a beneficiary, materially affects my obligation to this estate and to the integrity of these proceedings. I'll be advising Felix accordingly. I didn't fully understand what that meant yet. But Donna did. Because all the color left her face. After the officers left, Theodore asked Lillian and Clifton to wait in the reception area. He closed the conference room door. It was just me, Kayla, and Theodore, and the ghost of my father hanging in every corner of that room. Theodore sat down, folded his hands. Felix, he said, I need to tell you something about this will. Something I was prepared to share with everyone together, but given what just occurred, I believe you need to hear it privately first. My stomach dropped. Your father came to see me in January, Theodore began. He was concerned about Donna. Specifically, he discovered that in the previous 18 months, approximately $340,000 had been moved from a joint investment account into a private account in Donna's name only. Kayla looked at me. I kept my expression neutral. He hadn't confronted her yet. He wanted to be certain before he acted. But he updated the will, significantly, as a precaution. The version I read today is not the version Donna believes exists. I leaned forward. What do you mean? The original will, filed in 2019, gave Donna 58% of the estate. The January revision dropped her to 30%, restructured Kayla's trust with additional protections, and included a clause, a behavioral clause, that I've rarely seen in estate documents but is entirely legal in the state of Georgia. What kind of clause? Theodore opened the folder again and slid a page across the table. I read the line he pointed to. My father's words. In black ink. Written 2 months before he died. In the event that Donna Renee Tillman engages in any act of harassment, intimidation, or physical aggression toward any named beneficiary of this estate, her portion shall be immediately forfeited and redistributed. I sat back in my chair. My father had known. He'd prepared for this. He'd protected us from beyond the grave. Kayla covered her mouth with both hands. Is that enforceable? I asked. Absolutely, Theodore said. Your father was thorough. This clause was reviewed by 2 additional estate attorneys before it was filed. It is ironclad. And what happened in this room today, in front of me as the estate's legal representative, satisfies the condition completely. I felt something shift in my chest. Grief and awe tangled together. He knew, I said. He suspected. He hoped he was wrong. He prepared in case he wasn't. Theodore paused. Your father was a very wise man, Felix. I had to look away. I stared at the Atlanta skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows and I thought about Reginald Earl Tillman. A man who started with a lawnmower. A man who used to check my homework at the kitchen table. A man who taught me that the best revenge against people who underestimate you is to outlast them. He'd outlasted Donna, even from the grave. What happens to her 30%? I asked. Under the clause, it splits equally between the remaining beneficiaries. That means you, Kayla's trust, and the 2 employees. I turned to Kayla. She had tears running silently down her face, not from pain, I realized. From something deeper. From understanding, maybe for the first time, just how much her grandfather loved her. "Granddaddy did that for me," she whispered. "He did that for all of us, baby," I said. Theodore gave us a quiet moment before continuing. "I will need to formally notify Mrs. Tillman of the forfeiture. She will likely challenge it. But given today's events, given my first-hand witness testimony, and the police report being filed simultaneously, her legal position is extraordinarily weak." He straightened the folder. "She loses everything before she leaves this building." Theodore stepped out to retrieve Donna from the reception area. Those 3 minutes alone with Kayla were the realest 3 minutes of my life. "Dad," she said quietly, "did Granddaddy know she was stealing from him?" "I think he figured it out." "Why didn't he just leave her?" I thought about that. About who my father was. About the pride of a man who built something from nothing. The last thing he'd want is for his final chapter to be a public divorce scandal. About how he probably hoped he was wrong about her. About how love, even complicated love, doesn't switch off like a light. Because he was human, I said. And because he handled it the best way he knew how. Kayla was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm glad he put that in the will." "Me too." "I'm glad the lawyer saw it." "Me too, baby." She touched her cheek gently. The mark had faded some, but the memory wouldn't. "She doesn't scare me," Kayla said. And the certainty in her voice, "Lord." That was my father talking. That was 3 generations of Tillman stubbornness looking back at me through those eyes. "She never should have," I said. The door opened. Theodore returned, Donna walking ahead of him. Lillian and Clifton followed close behind like they were bracing for impact. Donna's expression had shifted entirely. The arrogance was still there, barely, like the last ember of a dying fire. But underneath it was something cracked open. She already knew. I could see it in her face. Someone had told her. Clifton, probably, he'd been on his phone. She knew what was coming. And still she stood there with her chin lifted, like pride was the only thing she had left to wear. Theodore stood at the head of the table. He didn't sit. He held a single document in both hands and read it aloud without preamble. "Mrs. Donna Renee Tillman, it is my obligation as executor and primary legal counsel for the estate of Reginald Earl Tillman to formally notify you that under Section 7, Clause C of the last will and testament dated January 9th of this year, your designated 30% share of the estate has been forfeited, effective immediately, based on the physical act of aggression witnessed by this office against minor beneficiary Kayla Simone Tillman, occurring at 10:52 a.m. this morning." Donna stood very still. Lillian made a sound, somewhere between a gasp and a curse. Clifton Reeves muttered something under his breath and began typing rapidly on his phone. "That is not," Donna started. "Mrs. Tillman, I'm asking you not to speak until I've finished." She closed her mouth. "Barely. You will receive written confirmation of this forfeiture by certified mail within 5 business days. You retain the right to pursue legal challenge, and I expect you will. However, I must advise you that my testimony, the responding officer's documentation, and the photographic evidence gathered this morning form a substantial legal record. Any challenge will be expensive and, in my professional assessment, unsuccessful." He set the paper down. "Additionally, I have referred the matter of the $340,000 in fund transfers from the joint Tillman investment account to the estate's forensic accounting team. That review will be completed within 60 days. That landed like a bomb. Donna's composure finally broke. "Reginald would never." "Reginald did," Theodore said simply. "He came to me in January. He sat in that chair." He pointed to the chair directly across from where Donna stood. "And he told me everything." What happened next, I couldn't have scripted if I tried. Clifton Reeve stood up, buttoned his jacket, and said to Donna, not quietly, I'm not your attorney. You need to find one. Then he walked out of the conference room without looking back. Just like that. Gone. Like she'd never mattered. Lillian grabbed Donna's arm. Let's go. Right now. Don't say another word. But Donna wasn't looking at Lillian. She was looking at me. And I want to be honest about what I felt in that moment. I want to be real with you. Because I know you probably expect me to feel triumphant. Vindicated. Maybe even victorious. I didn't. I felt tired. Profoundly, bone-deep tired. I looked at this woman my father had loved, or tried to love, and I saw someone who had wasted every chance she'd been given. Who had sat at my father's table and eaten his food and slept under the roof he built with his hands, and chosen, repeatedly, to take instead of give. To scheme instead of cherish. And when the moment of reckoning came, when the consequences of her choices stood right in front of her face, she hadn't even had the grace to feel remorse. Her first instinct had been to put her hands on a child. That told me everything about who she was. And everything about why my father had quietly, methodically, built walls against her. You should go, Donna, I said. My voice was flat. Not angry. Just done. She opened her mouth. Please, I added. Not for her sake. For mine. For Kayla's. For the memory of my father who deserved better than to have his name dragged through any more ugliness in this room. Lillian pulled her toward the door. Donna went. The weeks that followed were a storm, but the kind of storm you can stand in when you know the structure around you is solid. Donna retained an attorney. Filed a challenge to the will within 3 weeks. Her grounds were 3 things: undue influence, mental incapacity, and procedural irregularity. Theodore dismantled all 3. The undue influence claim required evidence that someone had manipulated my father's decision-making. Theodore produced phone records, meeting notes, and the documented timeline of my father's January visit that showed Reginald acting independently and deliberately. The mental incapacity claim required medical evidence. My father's physician, Dr. Anita Torres, who treated him for 11 years, submitted a formal statement confirming that Reginald Tillman was cognitively sharp and fully competent at his January appointment. The procedural irregularity claim simply had no basis. Theodore had followed every legal requirement to the letter. The challenge was dismissed in 61 days. The forensic accounting review came back in 58 days. The $340,000 in transfers was ruled unauthorized. Donna was served with a civil suit. I'll let the courts finish that story. But here's what mattered most to me, what I thought about on the night the dismissal came through, sitting on my back porch in the Atlanta dark, listening to the crickets. My father knew. He knew the kind of woman he'd married. He knew what she was capable of. And instead of leaving in anger or letting bitterness eat him alive, he sat down with a man he trusted, and he built something that would protect his son and his granddaughter long after he was gone. That is legacy. That is love with a backbone. That is Reginald Earl Tillman. Kayla turned 16 3 months after that morning in Theodore Hargrove's office. I took her to the same restaurant my father used to take me on my birthday, a soul food spot on Auburn Avenue called Mama Loretta's, red vinyl booths, sweet tea in mason jars, the kind of cornbread that makes you believe in something. We sat in the corner booth. The same corner booth. Kayla ordered his usual. Smothered pork chops, macaroni, collard greens. She said she wanted to feel close to him. We talked for almost 3 hours. About him. About that morning at the law firm. About the kind of people who take versus the kind of people who build. About what it means to protect the ones you love, not just when you're present, but in everything you put in place for when you're not. Before we left, Kayla pulled something from her jacket pocket. A folded piece of paper. Theodore mailed it to me, she said. Said Granddaddy left it specifically for me to receive on my 16th birthday. I didn't say a word. She unfolded it and read it silently first. Then she looked up, her grandfather's eyes, my father's smile, and she read it aloud. Kayla, my girl. You carry my name, my nose, and my stubbornness. The world will try to tell you what you're worth. Don't let it. You already know. Love you forever. Granddaddy Reggie. She folded it carefully and held it against her chest. I reached across the table. She took my hand. Outside, Atlanta moved on, loud, beautiful, relentless. And in that corner booth, surrounded by the smell of good food and the weight of real love, we were going to be all right. More than all right. We were Tillmans.